we will go ahead and get started. Hi, good evening, everybody, and welcome. My name is Todd Tharp, Assistant Director with the Iowa High School Athletic Association and Basketball Administrator for the Iowa High School Athletic Association. I'm pleased to have a great group of panelists here tonight, as this is our third officials and coaches webinar. Had one last week due to popular demand. We had just planned to have a couple of these. We had one back in December, and then planned on a second one. But appreciate the enthusiasm that our officials sought here regarding wanting more of this type of information. So appreciate Chuck Britton putting one together last week, and we'll see what happens moving forward here with future ones. But just excited to have you all here tonight. I'll introduce some of the other folks that are here. Some of them, like I said, are just here for listening purposes, along with the panelists. But we do have Gary Ross, Associate Director with the Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union, and the Girls Basketball Administrator is here on the line, and Chuck Britton, who is the Basketball Officials Liaison with the Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union, and also an assigner, and does the assigning for the postseason for the Girls Athletic Union. Also, like I said, we have Dave Rittman from DMOA, I think is at halftime of a game tonight, correct? So
yeah,
I think he's came in to get a few things started, and then went back for the second half. So he'll be coming in here in roughly 35 or 40 minutes. And then we're also thrilled to have Jason Alonz and Travis Carell from DMOA, who will be our main panelists tonight, discussing our topic tonight, which is focusing on end of game situations. And I appreciate those of you that submitted your questions for tonight. Just kind of some rules review. Again, not meant in any way, shape, or form to embarrass anybody regarding right answers and wrong answers, but again, maybe some educational purposes for all of us regarding what needs to be taken care of here regarding this. This situation came up, and I think a lot of the clips that Jason and Travis will be dealing with tonight. And again, we have both coaches and officials on here, I hope, for the most part. So that is great for everybody involved. But we did have actually two games a couple weeks ago that had end of game where we had 70-foot, 75-foot shots in the last minute of last seconds of ball games. We had one over in Western Iowa with a full court buzzer beater game that was tied. Team won on a 3-pointer, and then we had one over in Waukee a week ago on Friday too, to where we had not only a great finish to the game, but we also had a first overtime and a second overtime as well too. So most of the clips you can see here tonight deal with that Waukee Valley game. And again, information that's being talked about here tonight, again, is not meant to embarrass or ridicule any officials. They've gone over the aspects of things and aware of what occurred for the most part. So what we're going to do here first is, I believe, Travis is going to lead us off here. I'll let him introduce himself a little bit, and then let Jason as well too. But they're going to take you through here for roughly how long it takes here, next 60 to 75 or so minutes, to go through some of those quiz questions that you hopefully viewed today, and go through the answers, the discussions per the rules of the Federation, and then look through those video clips. And I know there's 4 or 5 different clips that Jason will break through with us, and then just some communication for crews. Again, you are all muted, so you will not be able to visit. If you do have any comments, we will be going through and trying to answer those questions. Or if you've got a question that you have, please try and use the chat feature. And at the very end, we will try and answer those questions in our Q&A. We may not interrupt Travis or Jason or Chuck or Dave or whatever they are in the presentations. We may wait till the very end, so don't get discouraged if we don't see it. But again, with Travis's talking. Jason might pop in if he feels it's an appropriate time, or Chuck or whatever, myself, Gary might go in from there. So, but again, we're just excited to have you here. We're now, over 100 participants here. So with that, Travis, I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit, and thank you for being a panelist, and thank you for being a part of this tonight. So
yeah, thank you, Todd. Great introduction. Everyone that's on the meeting tonight, thanks a million for joining us. Jason and I, as Todd said, will take you through just some thoughts on end of game situations. We have some questions and quiz questions we'll run through, and then Jason's got some video clips that we'll walk through as well. I know earlier today, Todd sent out a message to all of us as officials, giving everyone an opportunity to see the quiz questions and answer them if you would. The last time Jason and I looked about an hour ago, we had about 400 responses. So great participation across the state. So we thank you guys for doing that. As we think about end of game situations, each end of game situation is challenging to all of us as officials. Doesn't matter if we're working a varsity game, if we're working a middle school game, or somewhere there in between. As the score gets tighter, everything becomes more of a little bit of a pressure cooker. The clock gets under a minute. In Q4, we get to an overtime scenario. We have to be prepared. We have to be ready, to be prepared, and well equipped for success. So no matter how well we did in those 31 minutes leading up to the end of Q4, or as we get into an overtime, what people are going to remember is what's going to happen in those final few seconds of the game. And we're going to be measured on how we perform in those final few seconds. So one item that we feel is very, very important as we get to those end of game scenarios is our call accuracy. We've got to be very, very good and 100% sure on what we're doing in those final seconds. This is the time of the game when us as a crew have to trust each other. We have to own our primaries. We have to be 100% sure that we're getting the foul called that needs to be called. We get the violation called that needs to be called. We put the right free throw shooter on the line. We get the correct throw in spot. I think coaches will very much appreciate if the throw in spot we choose is the right throw in spot. They have plays set up for 28-foot sideline throw ins, they have plays set up for throw ins under the basket. So when we make those decisions in these final seconds, we need to be 100% sure of where that throw in spot should be so they can draw up the right play to help them be successful as well. And these decisions, as we get towards the end of these games, really make or break us. As I said, clock awareness is also very, very important. Probably one of the most crucial things that we're going to do in these final seconds is ensure that all of us on the crew are monitoring clocks. It's not the crew chief or the referee's responsibility to own the clock. It's all of our responsibilities to have an opinion on where the clock was when a whistle went off. We want to make sure that everyone is noticing it. It's not our only focus, but it's definitely one of our major focuses. And we want to be able to have an opinion at the end of the game when something happens on a made basket. We've got a calling official that's going to own that last shot. But if we have information that's valuable to getting that call correct, we've got to be confident enough in ourselves to go to that calling official and share that information. So this fourth bullet around being the best that we can be, really this all starts, I think it starts in the car ride. If we're fortunate enough we can ride to a game together, we should be talking basketball. When we're getting in the locker room, we're having a pregame discussion. We as we think through how we get to we work through a pregame discussion, we talk about where does the game start, how's it progress through, what are we doing throughout the game, and then getting to the end of the game, talking through some of the things that we'll share with you tonight that hopefully will help you in your pregame discussions to be prepared for these end of game scenarios. The last item on this page is kind of from an opening remarks is obvious fouls, obvious violations. I think, again, for the first 31 minutes of the game, or as we get into the overtime, we've shown the coaches, we've shown players, we've shown the fans what we're doing on that night. And we don't want to stray from that because we get to the end of the game. We don't want to come up with a random whistle that doesn't fit the game just because we thought we saw something. That gets back to owning your primary, being 100% sure on everything that we do. And we really have to trust our partners, and we really have to trust our preparation at this point that will make us successful and carry us through the end of this game. So we're going to move into 5 different case plays that we've put together. I'll talk through the questions, and as you can see on the slide with the alliteration, they're quick quiz questions. So hopefully a little smile to everybody there. Each case play will be in a multiple choice format. I'll read through the scenario, then pause for a moment, let you guys read it as well and start to look at the scenarios or the answers to the scenarios. And then I'll jump back in and we'll talk through the answers, and we'll show you also when we get to the actual answer, give you a reference to a rule or a case play that you can reference on your own. So again, go through the question, little pause, let you read it. So hopefully a little silence isn't too much for most people. So here's quiz question number 1. So A1 hits a jumper as time expires to end the 4th quarter. Team A has used all of their allotted timeouts. The coach from Team A is going to request a timeout before the overtime period begins. What's our protocols from there? So take a moment, kind of digest the question, look at the responses, and then we'll talk through the correct response and where we came up with this in the casebook and rule book. So in A gives us the opportunity to recognize the timeout. Both teams are going to be granted an additional 60-second timeout in the overtime. B also gives us the opportunity to recognize that timeout because both teams are granted an additional 30-second timeout to start the overtime. Or choice C, we're not going to recognize the timeout because if the coaches want a timeout following the end of the game, they need to wait until the ball becomes live to start the overtime period. So as we think through this question, choice B, we're going to rule choice B out because we know that when you go into an overtime period, you are granted an extra timeout, but it is not a 30-second timeout. It is a 60-second timeout. So choice B is not going to fit the answer to this question. So now we're down to A and C. So casebook play 5-11-5, situation B will tell you that once Q4 is over, or say overtime period 1 is over, we're not going to recognize that timeout in between the period of ending Q4 and starting overtime. We're going to wait until the overtime is started to allow either coach to call a timeout. So a little extra, maybe a step further on this is the ball becomes live to start an overtime once it leaves our hand when we throw the jump ball. So even if once we step into the circle, the ball's still not live. So we've got to wait for that ball to go up into the air. Now, once the ball's in the air, there's a few different things that could take place for us to pause the game and grant a timeout. So if we have a violation on the jump ball, that then the ball has become live. We would have a violation. A coach could be granted a timeout at that time. Or, more typically, we have a legal jump ball, someone secures it, coach may call a timeout at that point, then we can grant that timeout. So if you start an overtime, say with a technical foul free throw, something happens between the end of the 4th period and the overtime, and you're going to shoot free throws to start the overtime. Once the ball has been made available to the free throw shooter, now we have a live ball situation. So after that first free throw, someone could be granted a timeout. After the second free throw, they could be granted a timeout as well. So the key to that is the ball's got to be live. So out of our hands, or if we have a free throw situation, once the first free throw has ended, we would be able to grant a timeout. Question number 2. So A1 hits a jumper to go up 1 point late in the 4th quarter. As the ball clears the net, Coach B immediately calls a timeout. One of the officials acknowledges the timeout, blows his whistle, raises his hand to stop the clock. However, the clock's going to continue to run. Time's going to expire. Lights come on around the backboard and the horn sounds to presumably end the game. So we've got a running clock after a made basket. The coach of the team that's going to get the ball for a throw and requests a timeout. We acknowledge the timeout, but the clock does not stop. So what is our protocols as we move forward to presumably fix this situation at this point? So our first option is to say the game is over, the clock expired, the lights came on, the horn sounded, and Team A has won the game. Option B allows the officials to get together and with definitive knowledge, put the proper time back on the clock. So when I hit my whistle, I glance at the clock and it says 0.6. I have definitive knowledge that the clock should have stopped at 0.6 seconds. I can then award the ball to team B to run the end line for a throw in. Option C, Coach B's timeout cannot be acknowledged until the ball clears the net on a shot made by A1. And our answer is both B and C. So C has to happen before we can grant the timeout. We can't grant it while the ball is rolling around the rim. We can't grant it while it's maybe hung up in the net. We have to wait for it to clear the net. Then we can acknowledge that timeout. And then answer B is the key to this one, is that we, with definitive knowledge, can put time on the clock, grant the timeout, and then allow any player from team B to run the end line for a throw in. So you'll find this reference in rule 5.10.2. Question 3, so similar to question 2, just a little different scenario. So A1's going to hit a jumper, put this team up by 1 point late in the fourth quarter. The ball clears the net. The clock continues to run as it should. It then displays 0 time. The lights on the backboard come on and the game horn sounds to presumably end the game. So our question here becomes, in what priority, or what is the priority that we as officials would use as available timing equipment in the gym to determine if time is actually expired, in determining whether or not the coach who tried to call a timeout once it cleared the net, should we grant that timeout? So here we need to figure out what's the first thing we look at, what's the second, what's the third, what's the order of how we would end this game, or potentially grant him his timeout, him or her their timeout, and put time back on the clock. So do we go zeros, then horn, then lights? Do we go horn, lights, clock? Or do we go lights and horn if the horn's not available? Or excuse me, lights and use the horn if the lights don't come on. So our first option is always the backboard lights. That's what we want to go with first. That's that should be synced with the proper official game or shot game clock. So you'll see some things in the clips Jason has where we've got multiple clocks in a gym. So if we have multiple clocks in a gym, we have to identify which one is our exact timepiece. If you can determine one is hardwired versus one is Wi-Fi, I would recommend use the one that's hardwired, because that should be the one that's tied directly to the scorer's table and the clock that's being operated there. So in this scenario, we'll use the lights first. If we don't have lights, then we would go with the horn. Casebook play 5-6-2, situation I details out this protocol for you. So question 4, we have a game clock with 3/10 showing in the fourth quarter. Score is tied. Team A has a throw in from their backcourt after a made basket by Team B. Both teams are in the bonus. A1 throws a full court pass to teammate A2, catches the pass near Team A's basket, and shoots to score. So one of the keys here is we have 3/10 and we have a player who catches a pass. Time's going to expire. The LED lights are going to come on around the backboard when the ball is out of A2's hand on the way to the basket. The basket is no good. So A2 has released a shot, did not make a basket, but A2 is fouled by B2 before the lights come on the backboard. So 3/10, we have a catch on a pass. We have a missed shot. So technically, because we have a missed shot, the fact that the ball was or wasn't out of their hand in time is isn't something we have to spend too much time worrying about in this scenario. So a lot of answer choices here. So I'll give you a chance to maybe read the question a little bit and look at the answers. So again, focusing on the 0.3, and now we've came to a point where we have a shooter, an airborne shooter who's been fouled before the LED lights came on. Choice A allows us to clear the lane, give A2 2 free throws for his shooting foul. And the outcome of the free throws is going to determine if team A wins or we go to overtime. We'll clear the lane, give A2 their shots for B2's common foul since team A was in the bonus. So we have a scenario now where do we have an airborne shooter, or do we have just a common foul on someone who's not considered a shooter? The result then will determine if team A wins or we go to overtime. Or do we ignore B2's fouls unless it's intentional or flagrant, and then the game will just go to overtime? Finally, do we end the game as soon as A2 caught the throw-in pass, then go to overtime? So our rules tell us that with 3/10 or less, we can't catch a pass. We can only tap it into the basket. So here you go. So we're going to clear the lane. We're going to give A2 2 free throws for a common foul, because by rule that he can't catch and shoot. So the clock, the lights, the horn should have sounded before the release of the shot. So we're going to award them a common foul, put them on the line for free throws. So there's a rule reference for you, 441.6, as well as casebook 525, situation C.
And I think Travis, based on our conversations yesterday leading up to this, the fact that the lane is cleared and you could have a foul between the 0.3 and the red LED lights illuminating or the horns sounding, we could theoretically have time left on the clock. But the casebook play there, 525, tells us to clear the lane. So what Travis and I and Dave in our conversations kind of pieced together is that the clock would run to 0 because there was time. We would need at least 2 players in those lower free throw lane spaces to administer that free throw.
I think as officials, our instincts are, if someone catches a ball with 0.3 or less, we're done, right? Because they can't shoot the ball, and we have humans operating clocks, and they have to have an opportunity to start it and let it expire. So that's where this gives us the opportunity to call a common foul, even though the shot is unable to be if the shot were to go in the basket in this scenario, we would not be able to count the basket because they would not have released it in time.
Yeah, and likewise, if we were not in the bonus, we would just have a common foul, the ball would be out of bounds, and the game would be over, or we would go to overtime depending on the score.
Yep, that's a good point too, Jason. Yeah, if we don't have a tied score, then we just have a common foul, no bonus free throws. Someone's going to win the game at that point, or we go to OT on a tied score. All right, last question, number 5. As time is about to expire, with the game clock near 15 seconds in any period, the official opposite the table places an open hand on their chest. This nonverbal signal to partners indicates. I hope it's never A. Our second option is I've got last shot responsibility. C is the period's about to expire. D, the period is about to expire, so let's not rotate and lock down for the remainder of this possession. Or both B and D are correct. Before I show the answer, I think just a little advice I would give everyone is that in a scenario where we are getting down to the end of the game and we're going to have a shot that could win or tie a game, even if I'm the official that says, hey, I got last shot, period's about to expire, we're not going to rotate anymore, everyone needs to have an opinion on this play. We should all be in a position on the court where we can manage multiple things going on at the end of the game. I should be in a position to officiate the jump shooter potentially. any illegal contact that may happen on that jump shooter. If Jason is across the court at trail, he should be in a position to potentially help me with a 2 versus a 3, if that could make a difference in who wins this game. And if I go up and mark a 3 and Jason has a foot on the line, he should come to me immediately, and we need to talk about that. Because if I mark a 3 and they're down 2 and it goes in, and Jason doesn't come to me with that information, we may have a team win a game that shouldn't. So mechanics manual for this specific question just tells us this is our last shot responsibility. I think at this point in the game, when we get under 15 seconds, it's a really good idea that we should do our best to hold our positions on the court as officials. Whether we're in lead, whether we're in C, whether we're in trail, but we need to go where we need to go to see the play. I find a lot of times at lead late in games, I may move myself into the lane to get a better look at something, but I'm not going to make that full rotation, because then I'm changing who may have last second shot responsibilities. It just depends on how it's playing out. So don't forget to always go where you need to go to see the play, to get the best look, the best angle, so you can have an opinion on that last second shot to help out your crewmate who is responsible to score the goal or not score the goal if it should go in. So that is our last question. I'm going to turn things over to Jason, and he's going to share our video plays that we have regarding end of game situations.
Jason, if I can interrupt, Jason, this is Todd. If I can interrupt for just a second, just a true false question here. I'll let you guys answer it. And I know we should be far enough into the season, but I know I even had a couple emails last week. True or false? Overtime game goes into overtime. True or false? We reset the fouls to 0.
That is false.
Yep.
The
That is
foul
false.
counts.
So
The
again,
foul, yeah,
yep.
foul counts from Q4 carry over into the overtimes.
Yeah, and any subsequent overtimes
all
as well.
overtimes are
Mm-hmm.
yeah, all overtimes are an extension of the fourth quarter. So, like I said, from a coach's standpoint, I get that question about what does that count as, a fifth quarter or sixth quarter, seventh quarter, whatever. And the answer is no. Fourth quarter is an extension. Overtime is an extension. So, how many overtimes you have, those fouls stay where they were or continue on from there. So, unfortunately, we've had that happen a couple times. Just want to clarify that. Sorry to interrupt. Thank you.
No problem.
No, that's a good question. That's the extension. That's why we keep the players going the same direction when we re-jump. Fouls are the same. We'll reset the possession arrow. So we just keep playing from there. Travis, thank you. Job well done. My name is Jason Alonzo. I'm the Vice President of the Des Moines Officials Association. I work closely with Dave Rittman, who is the former president, who's now the Director of Training, Development, and Recruitment. I will say that we do take the training and development very seriously, and that's one of the things that we've really pushed with the DMOA in our meetings there is to try to make people better officials, get them in the proper position to make calls that are correct, so their call accuracy goes up, so they enjoy it more. They have more fun. They're trusted on bigger, better games. Hopefully work deeper into the postseason. And if you're like me, you take pride in a job well done. So one of the things that I know I'm grateful for is the access to the huddle clips that we have this year. I think last year we started, this year we've got much more film to look at. I know it's a great teaching tool to be able to look at my games, look at other games, be able to find clips to utilize and discuss at those DMOA meetings that we have. And now Todd and Gary have been so gracious to allow us to present that here. So just kind of going through here in the nuts and bolts. So in our library, our playlist, if you've been in the account, this should look familiar. We have the IHSAA, IGHSAU DMOA webinar. So this is where the clips from tonight will be housed, and they'll be up here. So if you want to go back later and revisit them, I know several years ago when I worked predominantly with 2 other officials as a crew, we would bring in clips from our games and discuss them. So this could even be pre-game topics heading into a game. If you continually work with the same officials, I know things can get bland and dull and stale as you continue to talk about the same things night after night. So this brings that aspect in. Up above there, we have the Des Moines Official Association. So our last meeting last week, I'm always afraid we're going to run short on content, so I prepared more. So as we go through this presentation tonight with the webinar, just know that that's out there, that if you want to take a look at that, and if you have questions, you can reach out to Dave, Travis, or I, and we'd be more than happy to answer those for you. But if I click here in the little circle here, and I'll hit play, and that'll bring up my play clips here. So just kind of a heads up as to how these are set up and designed. It's going to run through the first clip, just normal game speed, and then there's a button at the end here. You see the yellow circle. It's going to bring up a comment there that's going to pause it. So if you wanted to go back and watch it, you could rewind it. Otherwise, it's going to skip to the next. It's going to skip to that next clip, and then you got to go back. And if you have troubles like mine, sometimes it freezes and you have to exit and go back in. So I'm trying to minimize that for people as they go through. So one of the things that I know I talk about when we go through film is to look at the crew's positioning, and are we in a position to make the correct call? Do we have an open look, meaning can we see between defenders? Can we see the point of contact? You know, if we're straight lined or if we're looking through in a closed look, you know, then we tend to be guessing. And I know, as Travis mentioned at the start of this webinar, is we certainly don't want to be guessing in tight games at the end here, because we can work 31 and a half great minutes of basketball, and the only thing people remember is a call we goofed up in the last 30 seconds. It's not fair, but that's the advocation we're in, and that's how it works. So as I play the clip here, you'll be able to watch it and go through and just kind of keep an eye on the officials, how the players are moving, how the officials are moving, what they're looking at, where we are in the game. So it looks like we have 14.9 on the electronic wireless scoreboard, and it looks to be 14.7 on the hardwired game clock, which is going to be important later here. So there's 13 seconds on the shot clock. So there's not a huge difference, but there is a difference in the two shot clocks. So what we'll do on a crew is we'll give the two fingers across the chest, indicating that there's two horns here. So if we get a shot late in the shot clock period and the ball's in the air, we may have an offensive rebound. So the shot's in the air, the horn goes off, it hits the rim, so the shot clock would reset. So what we don't want to do is have that lapse in concentration and hit our whistle for an inadvertent whistle and possibly take away an offensive rebound for a putback that in this case would be a game winner. So we have to understand what's going on, and you know, we're going to get one horn, we're going to get two horns at the end. So that's why that's important. So I'm going to let this play through. So you should see number 4 dribbling up in the middle of the court there, hands off to number 30. And I'll let you kind of go through and watch this. So, and then you can see there's the pause, the click play to advance to the breakdown. If I was watching this with my crew or at home, I can rewind it, go back, watch the clip again. So we get the handoff. Okay, so to the untrained eye, it's not going to seem like there's a lot going on with that. But as we get to the breakdown here, we're going to go through positioning and what people are looking at, what they should be looking at. So as this play starts to develop here, we've got the trail who's positioned with an open look on the primary defender. The primary defender is the defender who's guarding the basketball. So anybody that comes over to help that primary defender as our secondary or help defender on drives to the lane, that's going to make a big deal here. Okay, so on top of the screen there, we have our C, who is looking at the upcoming ball screen. Okay, so things we need to do as we progress through the basketball game is we need to identify tendencies. Okay, if you've refereed the Valley boys basketball team, you know they're very athletic. Okay, they like to ball screen, try to get mismatches on the switches and take advantage of those things. With 13 seconds left, we need to understand what's going to go on here. So Trail's got his open look on the ball handler dribbler. Center's positioned to help on that screen because we're probably going to get a really competitive matchup on the ball. So if we can have 4 eyes on those 2 matchups, we're going to be better off. You can notice the lead is mirroring the ball. So the ball's almost in the middle of the court. So he's tighter. I know in watching film and looking for clips to share through the DMOA, we have a tendency to go down to the W and walk key as the lead and plant our feet there and grow roots, or on the second E and walk key there on the other side of the lane. But our lead here is a little bit wider. The next competitive matchup is going to be the arrow that is pointing out from him what he's looking at. It's not competitive right now, but it may turn into something. The 2 players in the corners, we don't have to worry about those matchups because there's at least 10 feet of space between the offensive player and the defensive player. So as we set up, the play starts to develop. And now we get the handoff, the trail position adjusts. So he's opening up to be able to maintain that open look through the ball handler dribble into that primary defender, knowing that as the offensive player gets closer to that mid-court line, we do have the possibility for a backcourt violation. So that position adjust, that's going to come up a lot throughout this presentation here. So White's already obtained legal guarding position. So now Black 30 starts his drive to the basket. Having refereed this game for 31 minutes and 54 seconds, we know that Black 30 is probably going to go to the basket when he gets the ball. So now, where do our eyes go and how do we officiate this play? Because right now, nothing else matters in this game except for this play right here. Okay, so the trail, he's going to continue on the primary ball handler, White 24, who's lost legal guarding position, as now Black's head and shoulders are past his defender. Okay, so by definition, now we have secondary defenders. So the lead, his eyes are going to pick up the near help defender or secondary defender, whichever terminology you're most familiar with, as this player steps over to stop the penetration. The center has eyes on this player from start to finish, the defender coming from the weak side. So the 3 defenders that can hurt us on this play, the 3 officials, we have eyes on those. So we have this play boxed in and covered really well right now. So as we go here, now, if you played it live, you may have seen C take a slight step down. So he positions adjusts now. He has a great look here to see the front side of the ball handler dribbler, which would be Black 30. As the ball goes away, trail is going to be straight line looking through White 24 and Black 30. So if we get a swipe down the front, lead is going to have the backside of this help defender from his side, the backside of the ball handler dribbler. So it's really important center here has an open look to be able to see that. So if they commit a foul, we need to have a whistle on that play. Okay, so great job position adjusting by the C, putting the crew in a dependable position here to get this call right. As Travis mentioned at the start here, these types of situations, this point in the game, we have to be 100% sure. So if there's no 50-50, I think he traveled, I think he got fouled, we're 100% sure he traveled, we're 100% sure he got fouled. If we're not sure, we're going to let things play out and decide the game that way. Okay. So now we get the kick to the corner. Again, C positions adjust slightly up, but he's got a great angle to watch and referee this closeout by White 11, who's going to come challenge this shot, because this is probably going to be a game winner if he makes it. Okay. Sometimes in these situations, we want to track the ball or go to rebounding action, right? And we've taught and we've heard, stay with the shooter, take the shooter up and down. In this situation, if that ball goes in, I guarantee the crowd and the players will let us know the ball went in the basket. The crowd will get really loud. The players will take the ball out of bounds. There'll be cues. So if we stay with the shooter and then transition to rebounding, we'll be so much better off as the officiating side. So we get the pump fake. C is on that close out there by white 11. Lead is in a wide angle position. So if he's wide, his field of vision is much greater than what it would be if he was standing on the W, where he's basically looking right up at these two big kids who are both 6'7", okay, and wide-bodied kids. So he's responsible for rebounding action. He's going to take those two players in the lane, okay? Trail out here. Remember, long shots tend to result in longer rebounds. So Trail is going to find the next person who can hurt the crew as far as coming in, committing a foul that we may not see. So it looks like the post player here, 52, he's coming in to rebound. So if I'm at Trail, I'm going to track this player to see what he does, to see if he comes in and flies in and displaces in an effort to get an offensive rebound, or if he's going to wait to see if it bounces over. But I want to have eyes on him and track him all the way to the rebounding action so he doesn't come and surprise me later. So if I'm the Trail, if my eyes go to 24 and all of a sudden 52 shows up, I have to make a split-second decision, not seeing the whole play. Where if I follow him in, I know exactly what he's doing and where he's been. We have the shot here, white 1 and black 4 out here. That's not a competitive matchup, so we don't necessarily have to worry about that right now. So now the shooters return to the floor. Steve can transition his eyes to the rebounding action. So biggest play of the game now is a potential missed rebound here on a missed shot. So lead, here's your angle here. Center's transitioned his eyes back to the rebounding action, looking here. Trail from the outside, looking on the backside here. And the crew is in really good shape to officiate a potential missed shot right here. And then we get the missed shot. We get an offensive rebound. 52 came through clean, got the offensive rebound. Center is the official opposite the table. So by our federation mechanics, he's responsible for the last second shot. I know Travis talked about this earlier. Trail and lead are going to have an opinion as to whether or not that shot was released in time. If we get an egregious miss from the official responsible for this, then we can go provide information and get the call right before we leave the court. Now, the thing that has really come up and been a driving force in this presentation as we've developed it here is, I know at Waukee High School, I know at Waukee Northwest High School, we have these electronic wireless scoreboards that have been displayed. And then we have the hardwired clocks above the basket. So according to the hardwired game clock above the scoreboard, there's 0.2 of a second remaining when 52 starts his upward motion here. On the electronic scoreboard, there's 0.4 of a second. So one of the things too in pregame, when we make sure talk to the table crew, tell them, hey, I need you to run that game clock all the way down to 0, even though players, both teams might be done warming up, might be in their huddles. It may seem silly to wait another 30 seconds, but if those red LED lights go off before the game, we can make note, okay, yes, they're synced. No, they're not synced. Travis and I worked the game on Monday of this week together, and there was no LED lights, so we just have the horn to go off of. And in pregame, the horn runs down, game clock runs down, hits 0. There's no horn. They had turned the auto horn off. So that gave us a chance to fix that, as opposed to the end of the first quarter when we may or may not have a last second shot in that situation. And then we would have been piecing together a lot of things that could have been prevented in a solid, just pregame there, making sure that those things are taken care of. So, one of the things I know Dave added there is to note that like in these gyms that have those electronic scoreboards, those are two examples I can think about top of my head. I'm sure there's others throughout the state, as people have worked in other gyms, but I know just tell the coaches, hey, the clock's above the shot clock. We're going to designate the official game clock tonight. And typically that's where your LED lights, if they're available. And I think those are becoming more prevalent in gyms. So we can make sure that we have all this information ahead of time. So we're not, second guessing and the coaches are, he said, she said this and that and whatnot. So there's where we are with that. So now that's the end of regulation and there's a breakdown of positioning, what people are looking at, things we need to be aware of. So thankfully, this was a good game. So it gave the crew ample opportunity to work on these situations. So here we get an inbounds coming off of a timeout with about 17 seconds left. And same thing here. We'll show the clip here, kind of watch what's going on. And then, like I said, if you go through this later, it'll come here to the click play to advance the breakdown button. So we'll go back. I'll run it again. So we have trail administering the throw in, ball's inbounded, and we'll play here for the next 15 seconds. All right, so as we move forward, I'm going to pause it right here. One of the things that stands out to me right away is the shot clock's off. So we only have the single horn here to worry about. Black can take it down all the way here and take the last shot of the overtime, which I would anticipate they would do. So we can kind of try to figure out what they may be doing. So if they try to run like a bluff set or something early, we know that's probably nothing because they don't want to give up a rebound and then give White a chance to score at the other end. So just some things that may make a big deal. So I said there's approximately 16.8 seconds in overtime. The shot clock is off. I say approximately because you can't read the game clock right now above the scoreboard. It's kind of blurry. So I would imagine it said 16.6 or something like that. So Trail steps away from the thrower and bounces it. I know something I've noticed looking for DMOA clips for our training purposes is that a lot of people will either hand the ball to the player on the sideline or they're real close. The farther you can get away and bounce, you're going to open up your field of vision. I know it doesn't look like there's a lot of things going on right now, but had we had a timeout closer to the end of the volleyball line toward the basket, there'd be more opportunities for things to go on. So we want to be able to see those things. If the ball gets kicked to this player in the corner, notice how lead's not on the screen. Lead's out here in a wide angle position, mirroring the ball. So if the ball does get kicked to the corner, we have an official right there. I know some people are probably thinking, well, the mechanics manual says that outside the 3-point line is the trails. And I completely understand that. But in certain situations, we need to referee plays. And if the ball gets kicked and we get a trap, lead better be officiating that until trail can get down there and help as well. Okay. So just know in situations, there's times where we need to do what we need to do for the betterment of the game. So the ball gets passed into the backcourt. So trail starts his 10-second backcourt count because kids do crazy things. And if he doesn't decide to advance the ball, we have a chance for a turnover here. So Trail also positions adjust to maintain an open look between the ball handler, dribbler, and the primary defender. Okay. C's positioned higher than normal. He's positioned to see all 4 of these players in his primary. He doesn't have a competitive matchup yet. So his eyes should be going from them back to the ball to see if that ball's coming back to them. And then lead is at the wide angle, mirroring the basketball like we talked about earlier. So as the ball's been kicked onto the floor, notice how lead has come back onto the picture. So as we continue, now we're right at that. If I move this, we're almost at our 60-40 cutoff here as we break down the court into our primary coverage areas. So with what's left on the clock here, looks like C is officiating this backside here as Trail officiates the front side, working to maintain that open look between them. I think Trail could even be on the court a little bit more. And then as the ball starts to come back, he can work his way back to the sideline there. So once that player crosses the half court, we still have the closely guarded count. So we need to make sure we understand that and get that point on, because where we are in the game clock, we could have a violation for that. And White should be rewarded for being able to play good defense if they can pull off that 5-second closely guarded count. Like I said, C's eyes are here since it's on that intersection line, and we don't want to give up a turnover based on a foul that we may miss on the backside because we're refereeing 4 guys that are standing around just looking at each other. So those would not be competitive matchups. So lead can pretty much take care of these 8 players since there's not much going on at this point of the play. So now we come across, and now Trail's got his 5-second count, felt it was broken, so he switched hands. So he had a 5-second count, felt Black got outside the 6-foot window, and then reestablished that legal guarding or closely guarded count, so switched hands. So Trail again, position adjusting, making sure he's trying to see between the ball handler, dribbler, and that primary defender. We have another ball screen coming, so now center official, we're going to track that matchup to make sure that's screened, because we're going to have a competitive matchup on the ball, and it's not fair and not wise on our part to put the Trail in a position to have to officiate all 4 of those players by himself when the other 6 players are just kind of hanging out. So he comes up, slips the screen. Okay. So again, we're down here to crunch time, 100% accuracy. We're 100% sure there's a foul, 100% sure there's a violation. If we're not sure, we're not going to split hairs or guess. We're going to let the thing play out. So again, lead is mirroring the ball in a wide angle position, responsible for the secondary help defenders, which could be this defender right here or the defender in the middle of the lane. And then center is going to give us a look here from the backside. And as it goes, we have the shot. So on the court, we ruled that Black Forest secured the ball off with both feet off the floor. So he was able to land with his right foot, then his left foot to attempt the shot. If we're 100% certain that he had secured the ball on the floor, we can definitely come up with a traveling violation. But like I said, if we're not 100% sure, we're going to let it play out. Okay. So now we have a rebound, ball's kicked around. The clock is hit 0. The red lights, LED lights are illuminated. We have a 1/10 of a second left on the electronic scoreboard. So again, very important as to why we designate the scoreboard and need to know which ones are synced to what. Okay. So critical to recognize this in gyms with multiple play clocks. So I think going in, hopefully now we don't just kind of pass that thing off, as we'll be cognizant of those things. Okay, so this is probably the first time White secures the basketball after the missed shot on the defensive rebound. The LED lights are illuminated. The clock is at 0. If we had audio, I'm sure that the horn would have went off by now. So there's no control by White before the end of the expiration of playing time here in the first overtime. So we are not going to grant this timeout request by White's coach. Is even if we grant the timeout and there's 1/10 of a second, then he's going to have to throw the ball length of the court and tap it in, or hope to get fouled, as Travis's last quiz question pointed out. Okay, so again, another end of the overtime scenario. So now we have a tie game. Black has the ball again. We get the jumper. Clock's allowed to expire. Horn goes off. Black thinks they've won the basketball game. Black student sections thinks they've won the basketball game. So there's a lot going on here. So we'll go back and we'll play it again. You can kind of see the players, the crew. Now we have Trail opposite, where we've had him table side the first 2 clips here. So he hits it right here. And there was a video that came out from the NCAA today on the women's side, and it was showing clips and things, and they had a great introduction, I thought, and I thought it fits perfectly what we're talking about tonight, especially this situation right here. It says, under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to the level of your training. So this is times when, if you've been through these situations, you've talked through them, these things become second nature here. So this is a great job by the crew here at the end of overtime here. So unless there's a turnover, Trail's going to be responsible for our last second shot, because by the manual, he's the official opposite the table. He's got his open look on the ball handler dribbler. Center here is positioned higher than normal. He's going to officiate this screen because we're going to get a really competitive matchup here as soon as Black starts making his move to the basket. So now the Trail can focus on that competitive matchup there. Center's going to help with the legality of that screen. And now the entire crew must be aware of the status of the clock at this point. Single digits. The one thing that Dave did point out is Trail could and should tap his chest. That was one of our quiz questions to indicate, hey, I've got less second shot. So none of the officials in the crew are surprised when the horn goes off. So we come back here. Trail has the screen and the ball handler dribbler coming off that screen with the primary defender. So Trail should be focused on the ball handler dribbler and the primary defender. So he needs help from the C. So the C here is refereeing the backside and the screen. We've got this play completely covered. Center's position adjusted a lot higher. His home base, remember, is free throw line extended, but based on the action and where the play is, he's moved up to make sure we cover the only competitive matchup that matters at this point in the game right now, is this one right here. So as Dave's note says here, don't officiate error. Make sure that we're looking at things with a purpose here. And now as it comes up, boom, we have the made basket. Once that ball clears the net, White's able to request to be granted a timeout. So we can see here that lead probably has the best angle looking back here through the coach. With the in the gyms that have the game clock on top of the shot clock, this helps tremendously with having everything kind of in a streamlined view here, so we can see exactly and have definite knowledge of when we requested that timeout as compared to how much time's left on the clock. You can see Trail up here marking the basket with his left hand as a 2-point basket using signal 17 from the officials manual. And then as soon as he marks that, his eyes are going to look to the bench here to look for that timeout request. You can see centers here as the ball's cleared the net. We don't have any players requesting a timeout yet. So you can see his head turning to find that head coach to see if indeed he wants to use his last timeout. So now we can see verbal confirmation here. It's hard to see the lead behind the basket. You can see the center's right arm start to raise. You can kind of see here that Trail has gone from the signal 17 with the 2 fingers out, that his arm position has changed. He's starting to go up, recognizing that he has a timeout request. Okay. So in this situation, we have to know how much time was left on the clock when the timeout request was acknowledged and granted. Okay. So the motions there know that we have a visual acknowledgement of that timeout. But in these situations, with our eyes here to the clock and everything, we know that we've hit our whistle, we've determined a timeout, we've checked the clock, and now those arms start to come up. So we have 0.6 on the electronic scoreboard or game clock. We have 4/10 here, but we can see as both officials' arms are starting to go up, we've already acknowledged this timeout request. So that definite knowledge, as far as the eyes on the coach and the scoreboard, that's going to trump the lag time that the timer is given to stop the clock. So if this is a basket and a timeout with 4 minutes and 14 seconds left and the clock runs down to 14:13, we're probably going to leave the clock where it was. If it runs down to 4:10, we'll probably put the time back on. Okay. But here, and you can see from the first time we watched the clip, the LED lights are going to illuminate, the clock's going to go to 0, the horn's going to sound. So we have definite knowledge here that the clock should not have expired and there is time left on the playing clock. So my question down here on the logo, it says, do we blow our whistle and then raise our hand, or raise our hand then blow our whistle? And I don't know how many people on this webinar right now have ever thought about that, but I don't think I've ever seen anybody raise their hand and then blow their whistle. I bet you all of us, if we went to it and thought about it, we blow our whistle and then we start to raise our hand. So that goes back to we've already acknowledged the timeout. Now we're given the visual confirmation of that. So now White's timeout request was clearly granted before the expiration of playing time. So we know the game isn't over, but these signals here tell the players, the fans, that the game is over. And that's what they think has happened. We note that all 3 officials are stopping the game clock to acknowledge the timeout request. So great clock situational awareness by the crew. This only happens because the situation was discussed in advance. And in advance, something we talk about pregame, we talk about off season, we talk about the things we're doing tonight to improve as officials. It happens during timeouts that lead up to this. So we have an inbound, we're coming out of the timeout, the crew is going to get together, we're going to talk about these things. So, hey, Black's got the ball, they're going to shoot. If we have a made basket or a rebound, White may want to take that last timeout. So we need to make sure we get our eyes to the bench area, find the head coach, to a player who may come up to us. And we need to be able to understand that those things are coming so we can anticipate them and not just react to them. Because on film will show if we should have had a timeout granted and we didn't. And although it may be a long shot, if a team's entitled to a chance to win the game at the end, they should be given that opportunity.
Hey, Jason, one thing too that will help the coaches and us as officials work better together in these situations is if we have an opportunity late in the game during a timeout, is to work with the coaches to have them signal timeouts, not just ask for them verbally. Because we can imagine the noise that happened in this gym when that ball went through the basket. There's no way any of us on the court would have ever heard the coach of the home team asking for a timeout. So if you have a chance as a crew, when you go to that timeout huddle for the last maybe possible timeout of the period, just tell the coach, hey, if you need a timeout, use your signals, because that helps us find you quicker and know exactly what you want us to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point, Travis.
So Travis, this is Todd again. So Travis,
Yeah.
with that statement, is it appropriate for an official to tell you that if he makes it, I want a timeout, or do you still want a signal of it? How's that philosophically as an official? Is it that thought process?
Todd, I would say my perspective on that is during the normal course of the game, maybe we're shooting free throws and it's the middle of the second quarter and coach says, hey, if he makes it, I'll take a timeout. I'll blow my whistle and grant the timeout. In an end of game scenario, my response to the coach would always be, I need you to signal it, because I don't want the other coach. I want the other coach to see him make that signal and not that I made a decision to grant a timeout. So for sure, end of game, definitely want that signal or that request to be in the moment when they want it, not predetermined.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I
Yep.
appreciate that.
Yep.
So
From my standpoint,
Chuck.
if a coach tells me he's going to call timeout, he's going to get it. That's just game management.
Mhm.
So I would definitely listen to those coaches, and I would encourage them to give you a signal, but they're in the heat of the battle too. And your game management is going to let you do what they're telling you that they want. So if they're definitive about it, and if he makes his free throw, I want a timeout. I'm going to give it to him. And I would tell you that whatever the book says, I'm not sure, but from a game management standpoint, that's your best option.
And,
Yeah,
and I
Chuck,
think,
yeah, Chuck, I think that's a great point. I think free throws are very, very, easy to deal with. They're in a situation with a made basket clock running. I think from a film perspective, if film shows the coach calling timeout, then I always have recourse to tell the other coach he requested it and we can see him call it. But yeah, good points, because we do need to work with the coaches and manage the game appropriately for sure.
And I know, going back to the free throw situation, if a coach says, hey, if he or she makes the free throw, I want a timeout. After that ball goes through, I'll say still, or ask them, do you still want, in case they've changed their mind? And usually they'll just nod their head, and then I'll go ahead and grant that timeout. Because sometimes they do change their mind and don't let us know. Assume that we're mind readers. But just a confirmation game management type thing. So yeah, good point. Okay, so back to this play in hand here. So the LED lights have illuminated, the shot clock has expired, or the game clock's expired, the LED lights are on, the horn's gone off. Black thinks they've won the basketball game. Their student section over here has piled onto the court, but we're not going to punish Black here because they honestly believe the game's over, they won. And in the heat of the moment, I think I would too. Okay, but the ball became dead when we blew our whistles and granted that timeout request. So not only is the clock dead for that, but because the game clock was allowed to expire, we as officials and the crew, we need to go ahead and fix that game clock as well. So we have two reasons why the clock is stopped. So while we're dealing with that, we can get everything sorted out. So as much as the white coach wants a technical foul in this situation, he's not going to get it for those reasons. So we didn't stop the game for those disruptions. We stopped the game for the timeout and the clock. And sometimes they don't want to hear it, but it is what it is. So from a managerial game management standpoint here, so we're going to get the players back to the team bench area. As a crew, we'll come together, make sure we know how much time is going to be put back on the clock. Once the teams are back to their bench areas, we'll inform the coaches, hey, this is how much time that we have left in the game when the timeout was granted. Hopefully the scorer or the timer can put that number back onto the board in a relatively efficient manner, because the longer it takes them, the more ramped up people seem to get, because they get excited if it's a 5 instead of a 0.5, and they don't think we're going to wait to fix that. There are different philosophies here as to how we're going to communicate the time left. Some people want to bring both coaches together, and so they both get the same information. Other times, I think in situations like this, I've just had one official from a crew go to each coach and just say, there's going to be 0.5 seconds on the game clock. It's white ball, that end. They can run the inline and leave because there's nothing more to discuss. White coach might want more time. He's not going to get it. Black coach wants less time. We're not going to do that. This is what the crew's decided. You've been told. And then we're going to start the timeout. So now they both have the same amount of time to draw their offensive play to try to score and their defensive play to try to prevent that. So we made it through there. So now in this game, we're back to the last 0.5 of a second, and we have the draw up, and we have the number 1 play on SportsCenter's top 10 the next morning, apparently. So it's not over till it's over, I guess. So as we can go back, we can kind of look at position of the crew, position of the players. We can kind of think about, if I was on the court, what would I be looking at? What would I be anticipating here? The catch, turn, heave. and the bank. And we'll go through this one more time with the annotations here. So Federation mechanics tell us the official opposite the table has the last second shot, which in this case would be trail. We can probably argue at length here whether or not that should be bounced to C or if C should have that, but we'll save that conversation for a later date and time. But by the manual, trail is going to be responsible for this last second shot. Notice how the lead is just deeper than the deepest defender, much like a normal press situation would be during the course of the rest of the game. So if we get a ball up here, he's going to be in position to officiate that. If he goes to the end line, he's going to be looking up back through players. So where he's positioned now, he's able to position adjust, see through players, and be able to adjudicate a competitive matchup if we get a long pass over the top or screening action or something that goes on back here. The center is going to be responsible for these three people in this setup here. So he's going to track these movements here. As we get ready to put the ball in play, as these set up, if I'm the C, I'm thinking about, okay, what might these players be doing? Okay. And the more you watch basketball, the more games you officiate, the more times you're in these scenarios, you'll start to anticipate what may be coming here. So as the center, once this kid jab steps and takes off, if I'm the center, I'm thinking he's doing one of two things right now. He's either going to jump out of bounds, catch the pass, become the new thrower in, and then he's going to throw it to this kid out of bounds coming back in, or a cutter somewhere. In that situation, we have to make sure that that kid's foot is down out of bounds before he touches the ball. Otherwise, he's committed a throw-in violation, which would give the ball back to black, which would in essence end the game in this situation. Or this player here, white 30, is going to go set a screen on the defender guarding the thrower in. Because we're coming off a made basket, white can run the inline down here. So we could get a screen, and as the thrower in tries or runs and moves down the inline here, the defender goes with him, doesn't see the screen, runs into the screener, and tries to get a displacement foul that way. So on this movement here, center now knows that that player is going to set a screen on the thrower in. So now those things are in play. Do we have a legal screen? If not, we could have an illegal screen. If he does set a legal screen, is that defender run through him? Does he go around him? Does he make contact? Is that contact enough to displace the white defender, assuming that he's going to be coached if he's contacted to either go down and embellish a foul or try to get us to believe he was fouled? So we have to see these plays from start to finish and know if a player goes to the floor, how did he or she get there? So any legal screen is a turnover, gives the ball back to black. Like I said, that black defender on the thrower in runs through that screen because the fourth overtime is an extension of the fourth quarter. Both teams are at 5 team fouls. We run through that legal screen. We're going to have two bonus free throws on the other end with a chance to tie that way. So we get the screen, we get the step. Now, as we catch, things just happen sometimes with divine intervention. So center's looking up through the catch to the clock. So do we get a legal start here on the clock as he catches and turns? We've gone through with discussions. I know I've heard the crews had discussions with the assigner as to do they believe the clock started on time and we can go back. We do have that like natural human element of reaction time, which I believe all parties believe that the start time fell within that natural reaction time. So here we can see the ball has been released and has left the shooter's hand. The LED lights are still off. I believe the clock does say 0. So we must have hundredths of a second that are still expiring between the reading of zeros right now and the illumination of those red LED lights. So the quiz question earlier, because we have LED lights in this gym, when they go off, that's the expiration of playing time. If our gym, like Travis and I worked in Monday, that doesn't have the LED lights, then we're going strictly off the horn. Does the release beat the horn? So it's Trail's last second shot responsibility. So you can see he's got positioned here with an open look. So he's watching here, looking for a flash out of his eyes. We use the LED lights versus the horn since light travels faster than sound. So our LED lights are going to be more precise. And then we have a legal 3-point attempt. So Trail has marked that. And then the ball happens to go in the basket. So Trail doesn't hit his whistle to end the period. So without that, center marks the successful 3-point, or marks the 3-point attempt, signals it successful. Trail, who's responsible for the last second shot, he's counting the 3-point basket, signaling the good attempt and the made shot. And then here he scores the basket with signal 16 from the manual. So it's good. Now, we need to understand as officials, our jurisdiction ends when we leave the visual confines of the playing court. So here you see C staying to observe this player right here. Not necessarily looking for him to do something, but just to make sure nothing happens between him and these players and fans and student section that are coming onto the court. And then you see as he walks away, now that potential altercation has ended, and now we can head to the locker room. The game is finally over. So that is our video breakdown for end of game situations. That game gave us a lot to look at, a lot to process. So hopefully there's lots of good takeaways from that. Some things we may have talked about before. Some things you may not have talked about in your crew. So hopefully going forward, we can utilize those things and become better officials together.
Awesome job, Jason and Travis. Hi, everyone. Dave Rittman here. I just got, we've been in now for hour 20. Everyone's anxious. An hour 20 means either you're a 6-pack in or a 12-pack in, depending on how quickly you put them away. But I just want to personally thank everyone that's been involved in putting together tonight's presentation. I've got just a couple of wrap-up points. Comments have been awesome. When we get through this summary screen, we'll give everybody a chance to ask a few questions. We've got through the chat and or the question and answer component. I think all of us should be so lucky to have an opportunity to work a game like this crew did. The great officials are the officials that look forward to having an opportunity in a stress-filled environment like a double overtime and a last-second shot. There was a lot of good things that happened in this game before the last 0.5 of a second. But as Jason walked through, when we talk of end-of-game situations, this is stuff that takes place in order to prepare for these situations. You don't get the solid performance that this crew had by taking the last time out of the game and visiting. This is the stuff that comes from experience of having been there before, but as equal, it takes the opportunity to have a solid pregame where you think about things so that you really don't get surprised. So, Jason, if you'd be so kind, let's set up this scenario now. The game's tied with less than a minute remaining in the fourth quarter overtime. Timeout is called. Crew discussion points should include the following. We've all been there. Sometimes the point separation allows us to have conversation about where we're going for pizza after the game. In this particular situation, with the game tied, less than a minute remaining, we darn well better be focused and talking about much more important business at hand. The outcome of the game is in the balance. Depending on where we're at in the season, this could result in a team advancing to postseason play or not. There's a lot of scenarios that make this particular situation very, very critical. So as a crew, let's talk about slowing down in that last timeout when you get a chance. Slowing down, be patient, relax. These are the things that as a crew chief, you may be working with veterans who understand this and are pretty versed at these first couple of items, but you may not be. You may be in a game with a couple of younger officials, and as a mentor, you're trying to calm a pretty anxious official. I'm certain in this situation. So here's where we really need to be perfect. We could have called a really good game. I heard Jason's point earlier that, we may have worked 31 good minutes, but nobody's going to remember anything about this game except this last few seconds. And this is where we really have to shine. So review the things that you've already talked about. Last second shot responsibility. Who is that? Remember, that's going to be by our rules and federation, the official across from the table. Jason mentioned a very good point. I always add this. The responsibility by the manual falls on one official. Everyone needs an opinion because it's not out of the question, nor beyond the rules, that we get together as a crew after a decision has been made on the floor, have a conversation with the crew, and change our decision. That's why, again, conversation about that situation. Would it be a popular decision? No. But what are you going to do if two partners come to you, you've scored it, and they come and said, Dave, that ball was clearly not out of the shooter's hand before those red LED lights came on. It's, again, you may need an escort out of the gym to change the decision, but that's all we've got in high school basketball without a monitor. If we're doing this game on a Saturday, that's a have to go and look situation with a monitor, and we're darn certain to get it right. But just because we don't have a monitor, my point is this: you have two partners and we need to communicate throughout the game. Who's got the visible, let's remember the visible 10-second count in the backcourt when the shot clock's turned off. See and observe a lot of games, and this is a little mechanic. People ask me this question just as a side point: should we go ahead and count if the shot clock shows less? I'm sorry, if the game clock, the shot clock's off, so we got a visible count requirement. But what do we do when the game clock is under 10 seconds? Do we still go ahead and show a visible count? Some of you would say, well, why bother? We can't have a 10-second backcourt count, a 10-second backcourt violation. But what we can have is a clock error. What if for some reason the clock operator stops the clock or doesn't start it properly? If we've got a visual count, we have definite knowledge for how much time to take off the game clock in that situation because we're counting. So for those of you who think, well, under 10, there's no reason for me to count, consider that option, that now with a visible count, you literally have definite knowledge to know how many seconds to take off the clock. How many timeouts are remaining for each team? This is a really good idea, obviously. Is the scoreboard always right? Does the scoreboard always reflect the proper number of team fouls and or timeouts? Not necessarily. Confirm that stuff with the table in a situation like this. It matters. Confirm the score with the official score. Generally we give a thumbs up, but after the game, why in a situation where you've got a last second shot that determines the outcome and everyone is anxious to get on or off the court, would you then worry about having to confirm the score? In a timeout, perfect opportunity just to check with the score and ask them, is everything good in the book? Are we good? That way, the only thing that matters is what happens in that last play. Situational awareness on defensive traps, pressure for timeout requests. A basketball IQ demands that we recognize what's coming next. You know, as a pilot, I can tell you that we always used to train for being out in front of the airplane, because if you got behind and you were making decisions as in real time instead of being out in front of the airplane. Same thing in a basketball game. We need to anticipate what's coming next so that nothing surprises us. Is the throw in a designated spot or running? How many of you have come out of a timeout and you're administering the throw in and you go brain dead and can't remember which team's ball it is? And if anyone on the call answers it's never happened to them, then I don't think you've worked basketball very long, because I believe it's happened to everyone. And sometimes the team gives us a clue and we get lucky. But we need to focus, obviously, but that's a great thing to talk about and have a crewmate reaffirm in that huddle, hey, they can run or no, they can't run, just so we know and whose ball it is coming off. Also, be aware in this situation on throw-ins. You recognize what the rules say about a foul that takes place for the purpose of stopping the game clock away from the throw-in. Someone has to have eyes on all 10 players. Is that a tough call to make, an intentional foul in that situation because a player grabs someone that's 50 feet from the basketball? Those are the situations that I would say we don't go looking for, because I don't want any game to end on that. But we have to be aware of it. The rules don't, we don't turn off the rule switch just because there's seconds left in a tie ball game. So just remember that. Same on the same hand, I don't think this is a time of the game to demonstrate just how good you are of the rules knowledge. In other words, let's make things big. Let's make certain that everyone sees what we're calling and we don't have to split hairs to find something just to prove how good we are. Obviously, game clock, shot clock awareness for the entire crew. We talk about training yourself on every possession to know exactly where the shot clock and the game clock are set. And then obviously coming out of a timeout with a tie ball game, that's also something that we need to know. Finish strong. Again, this is something you need to encourage to calm the nerves of the crew. Again, no one's going to remember the first 31 minutes, but certainly they're going to remember what happens in this last play. So let's make sure that we rise to the level and bring it, as they say. And lastly, communicate. There's just verbal, nonverbal cues, both, that at this point in the game you cannot put on the shelf. It's critically important that as a crew, you're all on the same page and everybody owns their 1/3. This is a great opportunity. Again, if crew bonding ever had a place, you talk about folks that have served in the military and seen combat action. Nothing bonds you together like, and I'm not trying to liken a basketball game to being in military combat, but you get the point. It's stress inducing. This will bond you together as a crew. This is a great opportunity for you to finish strong and demonstrate why you're been assigned to the game that you're working. Okay, with that, I did want to show one thing if I could, and that takes us back to this. Let's see if I can.
I stopped sharing, Dave, so you should be able to take over.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. This is interesting. I appreciate, I can show you exactly how these quiz questions work, but this was the third question, and you know, this particular platform allows us to track all of this information on what exactly. This was the third question. I wanted to see, show you all the dispersion of answers on this particular question. I don't know who you are or what your answer was, but what this slide demonstrates is that all of us have some learning to do as to what officially ends a game. I'll publish these, I'll present these graphs to Todd so that he can distribute them and everyone gets a chance to see the correct answers. There were over 400 participants on the quiz questions, and tonight we've had as many as 100 or 110 folks on the webinar. So for my part, thanks again for the opportunity for allowing the Des Moines Officials Association the opportunity to be a part of this training. I hope you all took something good away from it. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Todd and or Gary and or Chuck for closing comments.
Have anything you want to say? And I'll finish up here.
Nope, I'm good.
I'm good here too.
With that, like I said, I know a lot of questions have come up regarding, with the information that Travis and Jason showed. I've had plenty of coaches and officials that have asked me about the use of instant replay and using the technology. And, first off, instant replay is something that can be adopted by a state to use for the different sports that is permitted in the sport of basketball. The scope of when instant replay can be used is so small that both the girls and the boys have decided not to use it. The only time that instant replay can be used is in the state tournament series. And then at that, the only time it can be used is in the fourth quarter. And with that, the only time it can be used is to determine whether or not a last second shot went in ahead of the buzzer, such as this example, and also whether or not a 2-point shot or a 3-point shot should be awarded. So the scope is so small, that's why we have not used it at either one of our tournaments. So even if in any sport, any game, it wanted to be used, we would not be permitted to be, because the NFHS rules do not permit instant replay to be used during that time. So I just want to clarify that for both coaches and officials that are on this meeting as well, that it's not that they could have used it. The NFHS rules do not permit it to be used. So I just want to clarify that. And with that being said, again, I just want to thank everybody else. I appreciate everybody being on. Like I said, we're still in the upper 90s here. This will be recorded. As we said, it has been recorded. And we will, once we get, like I said, Dave gets his PowerPoint updated with questions and answers to those 5 questions. We will get all this up, give us a day or two to get things going, to get that set up. But hopefully we'll have this one. And I believe we'll be able to put this on Dragonfly, and we'll get the previous ones on Dragonfly as well, and also get them on both the girls and the boys websites as well. So with that, I believe, like I said, there's the Q&A stuff. I think, Travis, you've gone in and answered some questions, just some comments from people in there. So appreciate all of you tuning in and being part of this. And we will the next one and when that one will be, and what will be some of our process involved. So with that, again, Travis, Jason, Dave, thank you very much. Chuck and Gary, appreciate all of your help from the Girls Union, and on behalf of all of our coaches and officials tonight. And I know we'll all be busy here with rescheduling of contests, and be patient with schools and yourself as you get assigned these contests. So thank you very much and have a great night. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Good night, everyone.
Night. Thank you.